Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 1 Episode 6. It is called Q-less. So full spoilers for the episode. Yeah, Q's here, Vash is here. I was not expecting Vash on Deep Space Nine. I'm sure I probably saw that she was on Deep Space Nine back when she first appeared. I checked to see if she was going to pop up again, but I'd forgotten it. Forgotten it. Yeah. Yeah, basically, one of the shuttles is coming back, and there's some problems with it. Like they can't get the door open to it at the dock, and they're effectively going to die in the inside of the shuttle because there's no life support in there. So this is very weird. They call O'Brien down. It's all very. Turns out they've got a passenger that they got from the Gamma Quadrant, and it turns out to be Vash. And they're all going, how? What? She's been in the Gamma Quadrant for 2 years apparently. How could she be there before the wormhole? And of course, we were all like, Q put her there because Q can dart around wherever he wants. And of course, Q slyly kind of like just pops up behind them right before the opening credits.
Dressed as a red shirt.
Yes, specifically the next gen uniform. It's not until later in the episode he chooses to switch to the Deep Space Nine uniform just to fit in a bit better. But yeah, so Vash is here. Vash has got a bunch of artifacts from just things she got when she was in the Gamma Quadrant that she's looking to sell. Of course, Quark is all too happy to get in that business. So that's going on. And this power outage that seems to have happened in the shuttle starts to spread to the rest of the ship, station. And as a result, there's a bit of a ticking time clock. And like, is it Q that's behind this? Is it something else? So that's the gist of the episode. What did you think of Q-less?
Not enough Q.
Not enough Q.
Because don't get me wrong, Q is around and he has a couple of scenes where he does very, typical Q things. But I think I expected a bit more Q being Q, more shenanigans, I guess.
Yeah, I think I kind of appreciate that he's not really there for anyone on the station. He's just there for Vash. He's basically Vash has decided she wants nothing to do with him now after she went off, traveling with him. Decided he's a bit of a prick, which everyone told her. Everyone told her Q was going to be a nightmare, and she went anyway. And she wants nothing to do with him, so he's kind of just here to try and get her back. He's not really interested. He doesn't even recognize O'Brien. Obviously, O'Brien recognizes him and is like, "Shit. Cisco, we got a problem. Q's here." And
Cisco has had a meeting on Q.
Yeah. I love that Q is such a big deal. Like, all of his encounters with the Enterprise, that there's been like seminars and shit. Like, okay, this is what you have to understand about the Q. And this particular one that we've encountered that keeps popping up, you gotta be prepared.
The idea of a Q seminar. To get Picard in, to get a guest speech.
Yeah, Cisco is just, he's just no sells. He has that stern face on. Every time Q speaks to him, he's just not having it. And when Q tries to pick a fight with a sort of fake boxing match, Cisco whacks someone. We said the one thing this would probably do is show the difference between Cisco and Picard, and I don't know if I need them to vocalize it, but
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think I expect them to just put it into actual text. I thought it would just be would be the underlying subtext.
But Q said that Picard never did that. But hey, that means you're easy to provoke. So maybe there's some upsides to this. So it's interesting. It's kind of a relaxed episode. I know technically at one point, like, this power outage thing puts the station spinning towards the wormhole, which will tear it into a million pieces. So technically there is like a threat. But it's actually
feel like it though.
No, it feels very lighthearted, and I think it's because the A plot is very much Vash and like what she's doing, selling the artifacts, deciding what she's going to do next. So because of that, even when they find out in the auction with Quark and like all the bidders that the station's probably going to die, they don't really believe it and just keep going on with the auction. And that's kind of how the feeling of the episode feels. It just kind of feels like, yeah, of course it's not going to happen. So let's just
carry on with it. Yeah. And it is very much a case of them just being like, oh well. Right, who's next? Who's got the next bid?
And of course, the big thing is that the final artifact that Vash has is actually this thing that's draining the power. And when they beam it outside the station, turns out it's actually a life form of some kind that was sucking in energy. And it just wanted to go home because it immediately goes for the wormhole. Like, it just clearly wants to go back to wherever it came from.
Yep.
So, yeah. That's
Clark's upset because he doesn't get paid.
Of course, yes. Well, Q did offer $1 million, pressed platinum things.
Yes,
Where
gold pressed things.
Platinum. What was interesting is Vash says has a line earlier where she's always in it for the profit, and I'm like, we know that the Federation don't use currency anymore, so that means she's always been kind of like, if you're a human in this future that is dealing with profit and currency, like you are dealing. This is clearly, I mean, it's a currency that clearly other species use a lot of, but
Yeah, I was going to say, just because the Federation doesn't mean no humans do, because while they might, even if they're part of the Federation, they still presumably deal with.
Oh sure, but I imagine that, but surely nothing on Earth costs money because the Earth is run by the Federation. So I presume the Earth, if you just grow up on Earth, you're not using currency.
I guess, which leads to questions as to what about when some alien traders come to visit? How do you buy stuff?
Maybe there's just like a reserve for things like that. They've just got like a vault of gold place platinum, just for dealing with other
I think maybe
civilizations. But the thing is, though, is you've got like you've got the Federation, which is made up of all these. So at least right now, if the Vulcans, the Klingons, or whoever show up, they're not using currency either. So it's only the black markets and then also other races that don't use that aren't part of the Federation. So obviously the Ferengi used. I mean, their whole thing's about profit and business and assembling as much wealth as possible. And hell, Odo doesn't have a lot in this episode, but the one thing he does have is critiquing Quark's thirst for material gain, and like Quark keeps like suggested things that he might want. He's like, no, I've got my work set up. And the only thing that makes him pause, he still says no, but the one thing that makes him pause is, what about a gold place platinum bucket to sleep in? And he's like, no, I couldn't.
I love it how Quark's like, oh, what were you this time? The chair. He's already playing the game. Like, all right, guess the Odo.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's been listening to what he's been saying to Vash, and honestly, yeah, Quark scenes with Vash, I think, are fairly entertaining for what they are. Like her rubbing his ears, which like is like really enjoyable for him. It's apparently this is the trick to like getting a Ferengi on your side. He's like, apparently. Oh yes, 22%. That's fine. Just don't stop. Like, yeah. So Quark is basically offering these services to like act as a facilitator to sell all of her items, and he's taking a cut for it. That's basically it. Q keeps showing up and asking her to like reconsider, go back with them. Not that it's ever implying they were romantic, but it definitely has that kind of like style of plot to it, where it's like an ex-boyfriend wanting her back.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you're going with that. It definitely doesn't. There's no actual romantic subtext or anything like that. It's just in terms of what the plot is closest. That
said, though, there is a little tinge of like that Q-style jealousy where he's like, this is why you always end up with Picard, with Jean-Luc, like he does throw a little bit of that in there. So the parallels are there for it, but yeah, I agree, it's not romantic. That said, though, Vash is very popular with obviously Quark, but also Bashir. And Bashir, the little devil, is already like whining and dining someone at the start. In fact, the episode opens with him like telling his story about his final medical exam, and like O'Brien's at the next table just like rolling his eyes and like, oh god, this is painful to listen to.
Yeah.
Him doing his thing.
It's working, it seems.
Yeah, because I roll my eyes later. See when like he says, "Oh Vash, can we go and have dinner?" And this is right before Q makes him go sleep for the rest of the episode, so he misses everything else, and that's where O'Brien recognizes him. But before that, when he says to Vash, like, how about we go have dinner? Like, I'd love to have a medical reason to see you, but you're in great health, so I guess I'll just have to try and maintain that health by buying you dinner. And which says, okay, give me like 20 minutes to freshen up. He's like, that 20-minute wait will feel like an eternity. I was like, oh come on, like you're a cheesy prick. Like you really just met her. You just met her. Like this isn't like you're getting married tomorrow, so you're saying, oh, this night's going to feel like an eternity. At least then it'd be like, okay, I understand the scope of the magnitude of the night, right? The magnitude of like what's happening. Like this is, you're seeing her for dinner in 20 minutes. Like, calm down, man. But yeah, so
he's just a romantic at heart.
He is, yes. He's there to, Bashir, I think we said was maybe the weakest character at the start, and I think maybe that's arguably still true, but he's grown on me, to be honest. Like
I think it is still true for me. Probably still relatively comfortably, but the gap is less than it was.
Yeah. I think he's sense of humor, the voice is finding its footing, kind of thing. It's
He just needs a good episode or two to kind of really establish him. Whereas I think all the other characters have had a good episode now, whereas I don't think he really has.
Well, Dax hasn't, but the next episode's
That's
called
true.
Dax, so I've got a good feeling that she's
I
getting
suspect
that.
It might be about Dax.
Next episode, yeah. So yeah, I had a decent time with the episode. It's not as good as the last few, but I think it was interesting seeing Q interact with some of these other characters. The way he just dismisses O'Brien is quite funny. Their whole crisis about where the station's going. Like I say, you never really feel the threat of it, so it's not really ever a big deal. But technically it's happening, and technically they're all kind of looking for the cause, and I think most people will probably figure out it's one of the artifacts, and which one it is, because there's this one at the end they always focus on, this orb that's glowing.
Yeah.
So
no, that's fine. Because like I said, it's not really about the threat.
No,
it's just kind of about Q and Vash really, and probably Quark next after that, if anything.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that it never muddied the waters where Vash just goes off to do more archaeology stuff at the end. She's maybe considering going back to Earth and just settling down and like giving up.
She gets talked out of it pretty easily by the end.
He was talked out of by Q and Quark kind of like equally, so yeah, like I kind of appreciate that it was just kind of her passing through, and they didn't try to do some big plot with her where she was like the threat or the villain of the episode or anything like that. I suppose the critique would come more from like, or maybe it's actually pleasantly surprising in a weird way that Q wasn't behind the threat. Like, he clearly knew what it was, he wasn't telling them, but it wasn't his fault. He wasn't playing, because I thought that at the start. See, when you see Q at the start of the episode, thought, oh, he drained the power because he's up to something,
And that's what everyone else assumes as well.
Yeah, but then as it goes on, it's like
he's definitely aware, because by then he's like, oh, it took you long enough to figure it out.
Yeah, obviously doesn't give a shit because he's Q, but I'll be curious to see if he pops up. I can see this being the last time. Like, maybe this is just a one and done because it's Deep Space Nine kind of thing.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like it was there just his main purpose beyond facilitating plot and kind of just having an excuse to have Vash and do that. His purpose really in terms of on this show was kind of just to highlight again, okay, Sisko is different to Picard. I think that 5-minute section is probably the main reason that we had him on this episode, and why we probably don't really need him again on this show unless they just feel like it.
Yeah, and likewise, he gives a lot of Quark stuff as well. So again, it's using these characters to enhance the ones that are here to stick around, the ones that are here for good. So, in that respect, it's a smart enough thing to do. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. There's not a
pretty light episode, really.
It's a very light episode. I mean, you don't even see Odo for most of the episode. He has like one scene.
Yeah.
Jake's not there. I mean, Jake's been absent for most of the episodes at this point, though. But he's not around. Yeah, there's not like a huge, big threat.
There's no revelations, no massive threats. Like I say, it's just kind of like it's a solid enough little fun piece, and I don't think it's up to the levels of some of the fun episodes that we've had on Next Gen. But I suspect part of that is it's relatively early. We're still finding the voices for a lot of these characters.
Yeah. So which is why it makes sense that the established characters of Q and Vash actually probably come out feeling like they're the most not solid footed, because I mean we've actually technically spent more time with these characters in Deep Space Nine already than Vash, because Vash was only in like 3 episodes, but just they were so established coming from Next Gen that in comparison, like I said, you're actually using her to further establish Bashir's attitude and his like playboy mentality, further establish in Quark's like stuff, and like I say, her stuff with Quark is actually really entertaining. Like, it's fun. Quark, like it's like he's like a cat getting his ear rubbed or something. He's like, oh yes, don't stop. Like, that is entertaining, and the way he's like when they're debating over the last artifact, he's like, oh, you know what, this one's not worth very much. I'll take it off for 7 bars. And she's like, no, you try to take advantage of me. I'll give you like 15 for it, but don't tell anyone about my generosity. And then obviously later on, he's like starting the bin at 200.
Yeah, it's stuff like for moments for Quark where Vash is starting doing the auction, giving it all this. This is where I stole it from. This is where what civilization is part of the class. They don't care about any of this.
No, you're ruining this. And then he goes and goes, it's shiny, it's rare.
Yeah,
you want
and they all
it.
start bidding. Stuff like that is why it works to enhance our characters on this show by using Vash and for this stuff here and Q for the bits he had. And that's what as much as we're saying, oh, it's a really light episode, it's not a bad episode. It's just not very deep, but it's enjoyable enough.
Actually, one little thing with Q that I like this little 2-part beat is that he's with Vash and he brings up Jean-Luc, he brings up the Enterprise, and he clearly thinks about the Enterprise and Jean-Luc a lot. And that's something, the idea that he's kind of got like this weird, like wants to be Jean-Luc's friend kind of thing. Later on when he's on the command deck and he's with O'Brien, and O'Brien is like, I know you. And he's like, who are you? He's like, I'm from the Enterprise. He's like, oh yes, the Enterprise. Like, he sort of like plays it like, oh yeah, yes, I forgot about that shit.
Yeah, that tiny little insignificant thing that doesn't matter to me at all.
And then he says to O'Brien, oh, you were one of the little people.
Yeah.
So there's little nuggets in here, but it's definitely a lighthearted episode that, even though technically there is this, the station's going to blow up, it's never really believable or you never feel the tension of it. So
I don't think they really try to, because again, I think we're more with Vash and Quark of them being like, they'll stop it, don't worry about it. I
almost wonder, like, it's hurling towards the wormhole, was maybe just like overdoing it, where I think if just something's draining the power, we have to solve that for obvious reasons, and that's enough, and just find it that way. I guess they wanted the ticking time of like, no, it's total annihilation in 10
I
minutes.
dread to think how many times we're going to fall through the wormhole.
If they're smart, they'll make an active effort to not do it too often.
I would hope so, yeah.
But yeah. So decent time, but yeah, just a fun little episode, and that's it.
Like, before you read the description, you said the next one was called Dax.
Yes.
So I'm expecting a heavy episode. I don't mean it won't be fun or a lively, but I'm expecting we'll get a decent character chunk for her, and that will kind of establish it going forward.
Yeah. So here's the description. It's very short, this one. Dax is accused of murder that her previous host, Curzon, supposedly committed.
Okay, another murder mystery for one of our characters already is surprising.
This one is intriguing though, because it's the idea: is she guilty of her previous host doing something? Admittedly, this doesn't specify if it happened after she left the body of her previous host.
Can they leave the body? Does the body just die?
Oh, that's a good point. Or did it happen before, and she's going to have to prove that she wasn't like part of him yet? But then again, you would think.
And then there's a third part: is did they do it at all?
Yes, did they do it at all? And I think part of it might be as well that she like, well, no, when I bond with a host, like I know them intimately, and like I know they wouldn't do that. So like, or maybe it's like, oh wait, is there sometimes like some secret thing that I'd never realized, or like, I wonder, that may be complete bullshit, but I think the point of this episode is that it'll tell me that that's not possible. It'll explore these ideas and sort of solidify some of these, questions.
Yeah, I'm relatively optimistic about this one. Like I say, it's another murder mystery. It's very different to the last one, but because it sounds like it didn't even take place on the station. This is in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm intrigued. We'll learn a bit more about her and her past, presumably.
Oh, there's an actress in the next one called Fionnuala Flanagan. Is that like a weird long Irish spelling of Fiona?
I'd have to look at it to know.
Fionnuala.
No.
Okay. Because Flanagan's pretty Irish sounding.
It is.
Which is why
it's probably still an Irish name, but it's I
Well, it's not so much that I'm saying it's a weird spelling. I'm more just thinking, is this like what Fiona's short for technically? Because it might be.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Weird name, but we'll see her next episode. So that is next time on Deep Space Nine. Of course, the next Star Trek that we do, though, will be an episode of Next Generation, episode 14, I believe. So that's what's coming up next Star Trek-wise. So, yeah, let us know what you thought of this Deep Space Nine in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And of course, if you want to support the show, you can do it by hitting the super thanks button below the video, or on a more consistent basis over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv. If you want to support all the content and keep it all coming, you can head over there and do that and get some bonuses for your trouble. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And, you know, Odo could have been one of those artifacts in Vashi's things. Maybe he knew all along that there was a life form in it. Maybe he had a chat with it. You know, he was pretending to be the dagger whilst this orb was like this life form.
I was listening on everything.
Yeah.
He was in a very safe, protected place.
Yeah. Can he speak when he's in liquid form? Because I wonder if he's just like muffled, like.
I would love one day just to see him like be like a chair and just like a mouth form in the chair.
I'm in the bag. I'm in the bag. Help me! I'm in the bag.